Got a great one for you here. And I'm definitely gonna practice my German more before next year. We have Hanno FICHTNER here, co-founder of games distribution incubator HitFox Group. You probably see them as one of our sponsors. He's currently building out the San Francisco office of the HitFox portfolio company Applift. He was at McKinsey & Company for 7 years and founded 2 startups in the online and mobile space. Today, Hanno's going to be talking to us about designing the UA process, how to excel on buying ROI positive traffic. So give it up for Hanno.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction and also the good spelling of my German name. So I'm going to talk about ROI positive traffic buying today. So first I want to explain what does it mean, ROI positive traffic buying. Then I want to explain what you need to do to be able to buy ROI positive traffic, and then just give a short timeline on what to prepare before the launch and after the launch. Just as a short introduction, who's talking here. So I'm completely addicted to Candy Crush, as you can see, yeah? So level 365. Other than that, I'm a founder of the incubator HitFox, which is a game distribution, game marketing incubator. And one of our portfolio companies, Applift, which is an user acquisition and monetization network for games, for mobile games, just opened the office here in San Francisco, and I'm running the office now, and very happy to be here in San Francisco. And we are generating millions of new users for our customers. We promote like 150 plus games every month. So we have some experience that I want to share today. So looking at the process of how traffic had been bought 2 years ago, I want to share a little perspective of 3 waves that we are seeing there. So there initially was a wave which is like 1-2 years ago, where everyone was only buying top chart positions. Yeah? So when you were talking about user acquisition, no one really cared about how many installs you would get. Everyone was talking about, I want to be in the top charts, and can you boost me to the top charts, even guaranteeing top chart positions. This is obviously no longer possible because Apple really doesn't like it. You heard about App Gratis being pulled from the App Store because they really were nice in doing this. But this is basically over. And now there came a second wave, which was all about the lowest CPI. So when you were talking about user acquisition, everyone said, can you give me traffic for the lowest CPI possible, and please give me a lot of volume, but I can't really assess the quality of the traffic. And now we are coming to the third wave, and this is the wave that I would like to talk about today, which is the ROI positive traffic buying. Yeah? So you're really looking into what do I earn from the users that I'm buying, and you really try to optimize to pay as much as you can afford for the traffic that you're getting. And there are some other characteristics of those 3 waves that I would like to mention quickly. So in the first wave, everything was about paying a flat fee, because no one was able to even track the number of installs, so you could not be paid by CPI. Then that changed to a CPI-based payment, and now we are in the world of adjusted CPI, so you're only paying the CPI that really pays off for you. And then looking at the SDKs that were integrated, in the first wave no one had an SDK. Then everyone tried to integrate as many SDKs as possible because there were so many new traffic sources with SDKs. And you had like 10, 20 SDKs, and always when you were setting up a campaign, you had a long time before you could really run the campaign. And now we have the wave where there are only few SDKs integrated, and you connect to those SDKs on a server-to-server basis. And also the ad types have significantly changed. Initially it was all incentivized traffic, then everyone wanted non-incentivized traffic, and now it's more in the wave of non-intrusive integrations, and I will give some examples later. Yeah, so how does it work? There are basically 3 steps to follow when you want to buy ROI positive traffic. First, you need to set up the tracking, because if you don't generate data, you won't be able to optimize. Then you should make sure that your presence in the App Store is really optimal. And then you start with traffic buying and with optimizing the traffic sources. So let's jump into the tracking setup. So for the tracking, there are basically 2 sides of the tracking. One is everything that you track before the install, until the install, which is the campaign tracking. And then there's the second phase where you track events in the game. So in the first tracking, which is the campaign tracking, you want to identify what traffic source had brought how many installs. So you distinguish between paid traffic sources and non-paid traffic sources, and within the within both types, you break it down to the different traffic channels in those two types. And there are 2 methods that we would recommend to use for those tracking. One is the fingerprint tracking, and the other is the new Apple identifier. There is also the MAC address tracking still in place, but it's going to be deleted basically with the iOS 7 in autumn. So you should already now switch to IDFA so that you are prepared for this change. And there are some players that we can recommend. Mobile app tracking from HasOffers, Kochava, edX, AdEven, to mention a few. And then the other step is then the in-game tracking, where you track the events that show you how well the users monetize in the game, how they behave in the game. And also here there are some players mentioned. And what's important is that you can connect both tracking types. So you need a common identifier to make sure that you can later link the in-game events to the traffic sources. Otherwise, you can't really optimize. Yeah, now I want to look at the different KPIs that you can look in when you do the in-game event tracking. And there are basically 4 areas. The first area is retention. So it's basically looking at the churn rate. And the most common KPIs that you can look at is day 1 retention, day 7 retention, day 30 retention. Obviously, those values differ a lot between different types of games. Yeah, if you have a casual game, the day 1 retention can be up as high as 60%. If you look at a more core game, the day 1 retention will be a lot lower. Then you have engagement KPIs. For example, how much time do people spend per session? How many sessions do they have daily? Then you have virality. So this is often referred to as K-factor. So that means how many additional users does one user bring who is acquired by a paid or a non-paid channel. So for example, there can be 1.5, meaning you get 50% additional users for every user that comes into the funnel. And this is sometimes difficult to measure. You can measure it by looking into the Facebook sharing, into referrals. Yeah, when you put a tracking link behind those referrals, you can see that. But if you look, for example, at reviews, you can only estimate how many new users will come by reviews in the App Store. And then, obviously, the most interesting thing for everyone in this room is monetization. And then you look at RPU and RPPU, and also the rate of how many users monetize in the game. And you can obviously here again take KPIs that are very short time oriented, so that you look at the monetization in the first 3 days, for example, that you can really quickly start to optimize your traffic sources. Yeah, that's the tracking setup step. Now let's look into the App Store optimization. And before we go in, the first question is why is it interesting to optimize your App Store profile? Obviously, it makes sense for all the organic traffic that comes in, but it's also relevant for paid user acquisition, even if you pay on a CPI basis. Because if the conversion rate in the App Store is low, you will have very low eCPMs for all your traffic sources where you're integrated, and then your traffic partners don't like to feature you. But if you have a nice presence in the App Store and the conversion rates are nice, it's obviously leading to high eCPM rates for your traffic partners, and then it's a nice and easy sell towards your traffic partners. Yeah, and there had been a lot talked about App Store optimization basics, so I'm not touching deep into the discoverability. There are other good people that can talk about it. So what's important here is that you look at how can you be searched in the App Store, and you should look at your title, at your keywords. Especially on iOS, it's difficult because keywords are limited. But a little trick, you can also use in-app purchase item names to have additional keywords here to increase the number of characters that you have available. And there are some tools like Mobile Dev HQ, Searchman, that you can use to identify keywords that are popular in the App Store and also that are not competitive. Yeah? And then also on Android, the description is relevant. It's not relevant on iOS. Also in general, very important that you make sure that you really understand the differences between the different app stores, because here, as in this example, different things can be relevant in the different app stores. Yeah? But I want to talk a little bit more about conversion. Yeah, so after you have been searched in the App Store and the user has the choice to download your game or not. And here it's super relevant to look at those three elements at the icon, and I will give some more details later. Then at the screenshots and also at the ratings. And why is that? Why are only those three relevant and not the description and not the update information? It's because most users don't look at it. Yeah? If you look at the search results on the mobile phone, this is how the search results look like. Yeah? So you only see the icon, you only see the ratings, and you only see the first screenshot. Even if you click on details, you will not see more screenshots. You just see a part of the second screenshot. Yeah, and some people they scroll down. Yeah, but it's like if you want to optimize 80/20, spend most of the time on the icon and the screenshot. And what's also important that you make sure that the ratings are good before you do a campaign. And they should be not only good in the country where you're living, where you have your headquarters and where you can check it in the App Store, but you should also make sure that when you do a campaign in Australia, that people have already rated your game. Yeah? One way to do this is also there are some providers that can help you get some ratings. You can ask family, friends, obviously, and also just put in incentives in the game to do ratings. That's also helpful. Yeah? And I want to share one example how you can A/B test your icon and also your screenshot. This is an example of one of our sister companies, GameFinder, and we had the choice to pick different icons here. And this is real data that you can see. So what we did is we created landing pages that look like the App Store, but that are not the App Store, obviously. And you can use those tools that are mentioned here below, Admio and SparkPage to do that. So they create basically a landing page that look like the App Store, and then you send traffic on it, and you don't need to invest much money. It's like $1,000 that you need to get enough clicks. Enough visits and enough clicks, and then you make sure that the traffic is evenly split between the different icons. And then you can see the click rate, and in our example, it really differed a lot. And obviously, later for a campaign, that makes a huge difference. Yeah? And you can do this A/B testing, obviously as shown here for the icon. You can do that for your screenshots, and you can also do that for the name, if you have the freedom to still choose the name. Yeah, let's now come to traffic buying. And there are basically 3 steps now. One is to make sure that you pick the right traffic sources, that you make sure that you set up the campaign in the best way, and then that you optimize. And let's talk about the traffic sources first. What's very known is using in-app traffic, and there you have two options. One is using other games to cross-promote. The difficulty or the problem is that you might get users that are not really monetizing, because some game companies obviously don't like to show AdWords to people that are monetizing and only show it to people that are bad users. So you might end up with users that are not delivering good quality. Yeah? The other option is to use non-game sources like messaging apps, entertainment apps, travel apps. This is good when you can do good targeting, and also when you know how your target groups look like. And obviously here there's no AdWord selection of bad users. Yeah? So this is going to bring in better users. And then you also have mobile web, which is very interesting because those might be mobile blogs that write reviews about a game, just newspapers, for example. And the good thing is, because of the editorial integration in most cases, you really get pre-qualified users. And you need this fingerprint that I mentioned before in the campaign tracking to track mobile web installs, because you can't get a device identifier when you're using mobile web. So how does a good campaign look like? There are basically 3 elements that we would recommend. A is that you buy the traffic on a performance-based basis, yeah, so that you pay on a CPI and you don't pay on a CPM or a CPC or just a target CPI. You should really make sure that your traffic source agrees on a CPI that you're paying, and then you can optimize on it. Second, we always recommend to use non-incentivized traffic. There might be some cases where you want to boost your game to the charts, but that's the first wave of the 3 waves. So in most cases, you want to do a sustained campaign with really, really high quality traffic. And then the third element is make sure that you don't disturb the user with your offer, and that you don't make him angry by showing him annoying banners that are super flashy and disturbing him. And one nice example that I can show you is on the next slide. That's a French People magazine. They have a section there where they show games, and they show the games as gifts. Yeah? So they have like 4 boxes there, and you can click on one of the boxes. Then it zooms into the box. You scratch away the wrapping paper, and behind the wrapping paper there's a nice game. Yeah, so this is really a positive experience, yeah, because the design is fitting to this People magazine, and it's freely chosen that you select the game and get the advertisement. And obviously also the KPIs in this case, really nice, yeah? Extremely high click-through rate, very nice conversion rate, and on the opposite side for the traffic partner, this generates an eCPM of $33, which is super nice for them. Yeah. Yeah. So after you selected where you get the traffic from and how you want to be integrated, you need to make sure that the money that you spend is lower than the money that you earn. And the equation is the customer lifetime value needs to be higher than the eCPI. And why do I say eCPI and not CPI? Because there are effects that can increase your effective costs, and there are effects that are decreasing them. So decreasing, we already mentioned the K factor, so the virality in the game. You will also get organic installs just from being in the store, just from being found, because you had a good App Store optimization before. And then there are costs that are increasing your CPI, your eCPI, which can be fixed cost, setup costs, like you have to create new creators, and in some cases you even need to give in-app purchase items for free. If you want to do a promotion, take Apple Day, you need to give something for free, so you should also count that in. So after you have calculated your eCPI, you need to calculate your customer lifetime value. And I brought a nice formula, which is basically you need to make an assumption for your retention rate, and you also need to assume the money that you earn with every user that is active per day. And this leads to this nice retention curve, and then you multiply it with the money that you earn per day. And obviously this is not easy to do an estimate and to predict it, but you can use like the day one retention. This is a very short term indicator. You can use tutorial completion after 48 hours, for example. And you can use Facebook login. You can use opt-in for push notifications. And after some weeks that you're in the game, you learn what indicators are good indicators to predict a positive customer lifetime value. And if you take those both sides together, the customer lifetime value and the eCPI, you're able to optimize your traffic sources. And I gave this example here where we had 7 traffic sources, and you bought the traffic with different CPIs. You had different K factors per traffic source. And this then was leading to different eCPIs. And on the other side, you took some indicators, and in this case, it was the day one retention and the level completion to estimate the customer lifetime value that you would generate. And you see, it really differs. It really differs by traffic source. And in some cases, in the red cases, you pay too much. And what you should do is you should either completely shut down that traffic source or lower the CPI to a level that is reasonable for you. And for the other traffic sources, the good news is you can even increase the CPI so that you can that you spend more and you're more attractive in the traffic source, and you will get more volume. So all in all, this is then the result of really a positive traffic that you buy, and you don't have the risk to overspend. That's basically the story of ROI positive traffic buying. Thanks.
Let's give him a hand. Without a doubt, the most sophisticated math we've seen today. I'll have to say that. Excellent, excellent. Any questions? We have a question over here. A couple questions.
Hi. Great presentation, first of all. In the last slide, you showed K factor per channel. How can you calculate K factor per channel on mobile? This is something that personally we are having a lot of trouble with.
It's important that you remember when I talked about the campaign tracking and the in-game tracking, that you need a common identifier to match both. And if you have tracking links in your referral function, so for example, you send emails to friends that should also download the game. You have this tracking link in there, and then you can make sure that you link that to the traffic source. using the same device identifier that you used before.
Is there any chance to measure the traffic you get after optimization, search optimization? How much traffic you get from search optimization in App Store? Before,
yeah, it's always difficult to measure what is really traffic that is increased because of better App Store optimization. You can't really track that because the App Store is a black box. But what you can do, you can compare basically the organic installs that you got 2 weeks before the optimization.
and the new level.
Yeah, and then you just compare the levels, but it's
Okay.
not super accurate.
Okay, got it.
You said you used organic installs in eCPI calculations. I was wondering, at what point would you use ranking improvements in the app stores? And how would you calculate that improvement in organic download count, install count with different ranks to then feed back into your eCPI? And maybe at what ranks does that start to matter?
Yeah, so the calculation is very easy if I understood your question correctly. So you look at what are the paid installs. You can measure it by using the tracking algorithm, and then you add the organic installs that you get from looking into your tracking system, and then you just add it up and divide it by the number of installs. Or did I get the question wrong?
So the assumption is that as you move from, say, rank 20 to rank 10, there should be an increase in organic installs.
Yeah.
Is it common to associate that increase back to your payment acquisition?
Yeah. You can see how the organic installs change from being at a chart position top 50 and being at top 1. Yeah, obviously, because this is easy to measure. Yeah, but perhaps I didn't get your questions. Let's talk after the session. Sorry.
Earlier in your talk, you mentioned the importance of knowing the specifics of the platform. What would you say is the biggest difference between user acquisition on iOS versus Android?
There's one huge difference that if you want to go to the charts, you can't really do that on Android. You can't do that as a one-to-one relation, because on iOS, the algorithm is just taking into account the install. If you look at Android, it also takes into account the deinstalls, takes into account how many people really use the game. So that's a huge difference, obviously. And then also monetization levels differ between countries. In some countries, the monetization levels are already on par. In others, there's a huge gap between iOS and Android. And I can share some information if you want. Cool.
Okay, let's give one more hand for Hanno.
Thank you very much.